We are here at PMRExpo in Cologne. We're talking to Peter Clemons of Quixoticity. Difficult name, but great solutions.
You managed to pronounce it properly here, yeah.
All right, Peter, thank you very much for being here. Yeah. You just came from the US, is that correct? You have been to TETRA Americas Congress?
Last week we were in TETRA Americas Congress. I led a couple of panel discussions, and there was active debate about the potential for TETRA technology in North America and United States in particular.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that TETRA in the US is established, but not in public safety. It's dominantly P25 for public safety after the 9/11 situation.
Yes.
However, we have a challenge that FirstNet is not really rolled out as being thought in the first place. So is that the reason why at TETRA Americas Congress they were discussing TETRA possibility for public safety in the US, or?
Yeah, the situation that we have, as you mentioned, is that following 9/11, the US government made a decision that all government agencies need to deploy P25 technology for interoperability purposes in emergency situations. What we have is that P25 is still, even after many, many years, an expensive technology for perhaps smaller organizations or organizations that are not as well funded as in some of the larger cities. So P25 was never adopted as a nationwide standard. And then, of course, the situation that we have in 2012 is that the US government creates the FirstNet project with the idea of creating a next generation nationwide public safety broadband network. And yet after 4 years, we're also seeing that LTE is not developing as much as a solution for public safety. So we have this interesting situation that a mature technology such as TETRA in the rest of the world that is just beginning, that has been adopted maybe for the last 3 or 4 years in utilities and the transport space, could now conceivably be considered as an option for public safety technology, because now most TETRA networks now are fully IP based. You have the backhaul, you have core networks that are IP based. So there should be no necessary restrictions for those agencies that consider TETRA to be the best fit for their organization to be able to interwork, to interconnect with existing solutions such as P25. And maybe there would be an interesting possibility that if we could deploy the more mature, potentially less expensive and more richer in functionality such as TETRA, that in a few years' time, with the work that we're doing within TCCA and a lot of other organizations are doing within 3GPP, that actually deploying a TETRA solution now for public safety could allow, when the public safety LTE standard is fully developed, when FirstNet is up and running or something similar to that, that actually the TETRA and LTE could be a better fit going forward for these agencies than a P25 or some other technology.
And then it would be a smoother migration from TETRA to broadband, not only for Europe, but also for the US, actually for the world.
This is interesting because we see in a number of sectors. I also attended a few weeks ago a conference where they were discussing the evolution of GSMR, for example, for railways. But what we see within UIC is that actually the current version, standardized version of GSMR, is still based on the release 99 up to the release 4 versions of 3GPP. Whereas the public safety sector and TCCA and other critical communications sectors are already working on the latest releases of 3GPP, to incorporate some of this functionality. So it may actually be that rather than the GSMRs or P25s or other technologies, that TETRA could be a good option still for customers to deploy, thinking about a future broadband solution that could go together with TETRA in the short to medium term until the customers and until authorities are comfortable enough to deploy a fully LTE solution.
Well, won't you expect any problems in the frequency ranges within the US for TETRA, or is that not a problem?
That is becoming less of a problem now. There were a number of issues. First of all, TETRA was blocked for a number of years for a number of reasons. First of all, within Canada, accommodated TETRA much more easily about 5 or 6 years ago. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, FCC opened up the 450 to 470, which is quite popular for more commercial deployments of TETRA, and also part of the 800 megahertz that is used for public access SMR networks, as they call it in the US. But even within UHF frequencies, 800, and maybe even within, there are some options also in 900 megahertz, and maybe even as low as 200 megahertz as well. The good thing about TETRA now is that it's a mature technology. It's been deployed virtually across the world, and there are frequencies available for TETRA now in the US.
So to wrap up, it will probably be a political decision in this case. Is that correct or not?
It could be a political decision, but I think what we also need, we need to continue to educate the potential users, to continue to train up the professional staff, the dealers. TETRA is still not a very well understood technology in the US. So there's the political side, and then also there is the need for more of the TETRA vendors, who we see very active in other parts of the world, becoming more active within the US. So we're seeing maybe a smaller ecosystem at the moment. So we see companies such as PowerTrunk, that has now become also kind of part of the Sapura group, have been pushing this quite aggressively. What we now need, there are a small number but a significant number of fairly large potential TETRA projects that are in the pipeline now in the US. And so what this should mean is that the knowledge of TETRA becomes greater, and the actual potential for some of the other TETRA vendors who are focusing on other parts of the world, now they can show a much more interest in the US as well. So it's the potential for TETRA in the USA, particularly for somebody such as myself, who even during the late 1990s was starting to look at TETRA in the US, and then we were disappointed for a number of years, but it does finally look as if there is a potential for a much larger market in the US market for TETRA now.
There's not just saying which out there, timing is everything, and maybe this is right timing at the moment in order to push this forward as a possible solution.
I think so. I think that we have a window of opportunity now over the next couple of years, that if we really dedicate enough resources to promoting TETRA within the US, that really we could create some very, very interesting momentum for this. And I think that if we could develop enough of a base for TETRA in enough verticals, in enough projects, this could be the base for the development of the next generation of critical communication solutions.
Peter, thank you very much for this interview, much appreciated. Only time will tell, is it?
Only time will tell, yeah.